All right, today we're diving into a document that makes a pretty radical claim that there's a systematic chemical war being waged against our very biology. We're going to break down its core thesis, something the source itself calls the war on the body.
Okay, so this one quote, it's pretty much the foundation for everything else in this document. It basically throws out the conventional idea of the body as just a biological machine. Instead, it reframes it as something sacred, something divine.
And that, of course, leads to the core question of the whole piece. If our bodies really are these incredible temples, what happens when, as this document alleges, they are being systematically poisoned? This is the central conflict that sets the stage for the entire thing.
So let's get into the first section. The document lays out its main idea right here, arguing that we should think of the human body not just as flesh and bone, but as a piece of incredibly advanced technology that it calls divine hardware.
So you've got these two totally different ways of looking at the human body. On one hand, there's the view it calls the Meatsuit model, that we're just a flawed biological accident. But on the other hand, the document presents its own view. The body is this sophisticated bioelectric antenna designed to receive and transmit information on a level we can barely imagine.
So what exactly is this divine hardware? Well, the source breaks it down with these analogies. It calls the nervous system the fiber optic wiring, the endocrine system a chemical engineering plant, the heart is the main power plant, DNA is a fractal antenna, and, this one's important, the pineal gland is the central processing unit, the CPU.
And this is where it gets really interesting. This is the why. According to this indictment, propaganda and lies are secondary. The ultimate form of control, it claims, is to physically degrade this biological hardware, to literally make people incapable of clear thought or, as it says, spiritual connection.
Okay, so with that foundation laid, the document then dives into the first of its three big case files as evidence for this alleged war. And the first stop is our global food supply.
And just like before, we're presented with two completely conflicting stories. The official narrative, praises the Green Revolution as this amazing humanitarian effort to feed the world. But the indictment argues it was actually a corporate coup, one designed to create food that looks fine, but is fundamentally empty of nutrients.
So how does this poisoning supposedly work? The document lays out this two-step process. First, what it calls the NPK lie. This is the idea that standard NPK fertilizers kill all the living microorganisms in the soil. Without them, plants can't absorb essential trace minerals, leading to empty food. And second, the deployment of what it calls the glyphosate weapon.
Now, when it comes to glyphosate, the source makes a really specific point. It says, hey, don't just take our word for it. Look at the chemical's own patents. It argues these documents reveal it was designed to be what it calls a dual-threat weapon against our biology.
Okay, so here's the first piece of evidence they present, this patent. The document claims this proves glyphosate is a potent chelating agent. What does that mean? Well, in really simple terms, it means the chemical basically grabs onto minerals in the soil and holds them hostage, preventing the plant from ever absorbing them. The result? Nutrient-deficient food. And then there's the second part of the threat. This patent, the document argues, shows that glyphosate is also a powerful, broad-spectrum antibiotic. So when we eat food that contains it, this antibiotic action allegedly just wipes out our gut microbiome, the very thing that's crucial for our immune system and even our mental health. All right, moving on from our food to our water. The second case file zooms in on one specific practice, water fluoridation. And you're probably noticing a pattern here, right? On one side, you have the official story. Fluoridation is a simple, benevolent public health initiative to prevent cavities. But the indictment completely reframes it, calling it a calcification protocol, a targeted chemical warfare operation against what it considers spiritual perception. So the document breaks down the alleged mechanism into three steps. First, it questions the source, claiming the fluoride used isn't a natural mineral but a toxic industrial waste product. Second, citing research from a Dr. Jennifer Luke, it claims the main target in the body is the pineal gland. And finally, the result, the fluoride supposedly bonds with calcium, literally hardening this vital gland over time. And this quote from the source really drives home the alleged result. It claims this process turns the pineal gland, what it calls a highly sensitive, crystalline piezoelectric radio transceiver, into nothing more than a useless calcified rock, essentially disabling that biological CPU we talked about earlier. And that brings us to the final case file, which takes a hard look at the modern medical system. The document argues that it was engineered from the very beginning with a purpose that might not be what you think.
You know the official line, right? Modern medicine was standardized to protect us all from, quackery and snake oil salesmen. But the source flips that narrative on its head. It argues this was all a pretext to create what it calls a pharmaceutical priesthood, a monopoly that doesn't profit from health, but from perpetual illness.
The document pinpoints one single event as the major turning point, the Flexner Report from 1910. It says this report, which was funded by big names like Carnegie and Rockefeller, was used to audit all American medical schools. And the outcome? It systematically shut down and delegitimized any healing that couldn't be patented, things like herbalism, homeopathy, and other natural traditions.
And all of this, according to the source, leads to a system that isn't about healthcare at all, but about what it calls disease management. The indictment's verdict is that the whole model is based on creating lifelong, dependent customers for patented drugs, because, as it bluntly states, a cured patient is a lost customer.
Okay, so let's tie all of this together. We've looked at the case files on food, water, and medicine. This brings us to the document's final verdict, the ultimate goal behind this alleged war on the body.
And this one quote really sums up the entire thesis. The ultimate reason for this alleged war on the body? Control. The document's final verdict is that the systematic degradation of our biology is a deliberate strategy, one based on the premise that a truly healthy, clear-thinking population is simply ungovernable.
So, in the end, the source presents this really dark diagnosis of the modern world. It claims we are in a multi-front war, a war for our own biology. It doesn't pretend to have all the answers, but it leaves us with one final, pretty heavy question to think about.